I started writing again. But this time I started writing about what I learned on the journey. And I would only start to write if I actually had something to write about, if I had something like an epiphany that came to me. It became so much more simple. Everything became simpler at that point.
We are rolling, baby.
Action, baby.
Let's go. Yes.
Take one.
Take one of 360.
Yeah, 365 all year round.
Yes.
Let's do a take a day.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So should we do a take a day, or how do you want to do this? Do this every... Is this a rare occasion to have you here with me?
We'll see. We'll see how things go.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're about 7.5 hours apart, so.
I know. But we do live in a pretty amazing location, man.
This is a really amazing place.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can see back here, but there's a lake on this side. There's a pond on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
How many acres are we on?
This is 42 acres. Man, we're so lucky.
It's a really beautiful space.
In Silicon Valley at that too, you know?
It's a really beautiful space.
Yeah, so it's a long story. I mean, I was homeless for 12 years and I made it to housed. Well, literally to the day of leaving my parents' house on a new moon.
Today?
No, it was last year.
Okay.
This happened. Yeah. So actually June 28th, I think, will be kind of like around the next new moon period. That is 1 year anniversary.
Okay. So you want to talk about your story of how it all started for you and what happened when you were 18 years old?
Wow. Sure. All right. Yeah, I guess so. Basically, when I turned 18, I decided I wanted to become a man, move out, start my own life. And the reason why I wanted to move out was because, honestly, I struggled with OCD, and I had this idea in my head that I needed to be perfectly from scratch. I needed to be completely cut off from everything.
Like a new canvas.
Completely blank slate, start over, fresh. And so I actually wrote a will, and I wrote it to my parents, and I gave everything away, in that will. And I said I knew where I wanted this to go. I wanted this to go to that person. You know what I mean? And I just completely cut everything off. I shaved my hair and I left naked and at midnight. And I felt so free all of a sudden.
So no facial hair, no head hair.
Nothing.
Okay.
No hair at all, anywhere.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it was just for myself, it wasn't really for anybody else. It was just for my own mental sanity. It sounds crazy, but it really healed me to go through this ritual. It was a kind of testament to myself that I'm being reborn, so to speak, Mm-hmm. And I understood that symbology because I was on my path to becoming a pastor when I was younger. And I was raised in a Seventh-day Adventist denomination, so we were very, very strict religious. I was basically a Christian Jew, we observed Sabbath, feast days, no jewelry, no unclean meats, all that kind of stuff, Mm-hmm. And I was in a specific kind of denomination that I would say is it's not like the typical Christian nowadays, like it was very set apart. I couldn't do sports, couldn't do anything like that. So
that was against the religion?
Well, all the games were on Sabbath, you know what I mean? Friday nights, Saturday, so I couldn't do anything. So all I really could do was music. And so I became a church musician. My whole life really revolved around church at that point.
And you're an amazing piano player, right?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. But yeah, so I was on this path, to becoming this pastor, religious example, for the community. But at the same time, in my public life, I was torn because I was like voted most mischievous in the yearbook. I was voted homecoming prince. I was
Homecoming
vice
prince
president.
or king?
Prince. This was before senior year. So
Oh, okay.
I was so I was like all these different things, in the public sector, and then I just started to develop this like double life in a sense. I didn't know really who I was, because I was a different person at church than I was in public, and so because of that, it caused me to have a little bit of an identity crisis. A major identity crisis. In fact, it was to the point where I was so torn that I really did not even care if I died, which is why I was able to give everything up so easily. I wanted to start fresh. I wanted to start from scratch and actually talk to God if he was there, if he's real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's very few people that have given away all their things and just had nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about people that go on to become monks or nuns and things like that.
Yeah.
That's part of the practice, but
right.
For everyday people, that's kind of a far stretch.
I mean, I became an ascetic. I lived the life of a monk pretty much. I was living under bridges, living under trees. I got a tent eventually at some point that I lived in. Lived in cars along the way. I've lived in, couch surfed, boats. I've lived everywhere.
So let's rewind it a little bit. You wrote the will. You stripped down, shaved everything off.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
Well, actually, I felt so free that night because I was out under the stars for the first time, just completely naked and connected to the earth in a way that I had never done my whole life.
No cell phone, none of that
nothing,
back then, right?
Nothing.
Okay.
Up until I was, since I was birthed into the world, I'd never been really naked and raw with the planet like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like it really did feel like a rebirth moment, rebirthing moment. But at the same time, I was like, okay, now what?
Were you scared?
I was not scared, but I was thinking like strategically, okay, like what am I going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't just go back home. Like that would just kind of defeat the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really go anywhere naked. No one's going to like approach me or accept me. So what I did is I found a fig tree and I made like a little loincloth out of it. Mm-hmm. And then I started walking down the highway and I put my thumb out and eventually someone picked me up. The people that picked me up were actually on their way to a party. They were like high school students that because it was after graduation. So everyone was still partying, and so I actually ended up getting a ride from these teenagers. And when I got to their place, they gave me my first pair of clothes and they gave me a journal and a backpack. And they're like, write everything down because this is going to be the most epic journey of your life. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be the most epic journey of my life. I'm still on it,
Nice.
And it's so profound because I really started to write everything down. And because I was writing everything down, I started to actually think about things, like I wasn't just thinking, I was rethinking,
mm-hmm.
I was being mindful.
Like analyzing it.
Yeah, I was analyzing my day. I started journaling, and journaling is a profound practice, right? You do that, don't you?
Yeah, journaling is one of those practices that is really underrated and people don't realize the power in it because you're literally taking something from your mind and from your thoughs and bringing it into this reality by writing it on a piece of paper. It's becoming matter on paper through the ink, through your thoughts into this reality. I mean, it's really fascinating if you think about reading a book, right? Like it's literally just scribbles on a piece of paper. And in your mind, though, you create this whole story and it's really it's a really amazing
Yeah.
thing. And when I was a kid, I loved reading because it would put me into a whole new world, you know, like
Yeah.
I read all the Harry Potters.
You did.
I did some of the Lord of the Rings,
Right on.
the Hobbit, you know, you name it. My favorite book when I was younger was this book called Redwall.
Never heard of it.
It was like a Redwall was the original book, and then there was a series that I think he's got over 20 books now, and it was all like rodents, different types of animals, and they all had like a life, and that was really interesting.
Like Peter Rabbit kind of stuff.
Well, there was like this warrior mouse.
Oh, cool.
And then there was this abbey where they had like tall walls that protected him from the foxes and from the rats, and there was wars that went on, and it was like this whole nother world, but with the animals. And I always loved animals, so that really resonated for me at the time, and I really enjoyed those books. And it was also pretty, like, the language itself, the way it was written was not, it was more advanced, I would say, than like a average 10-year-old book. So I learned a lot from that too.
Good.
But
yeah, you can learn so much from books, and you can learn so much about yourself from journaling. You know?
Yes.
Because what it is like a mirror into your own brain. When you write things down, you can reflect on something that you thought of or experienced, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if I've told you, I've actually taken a journal that I started when I had my awakening, and I wrote all the way up to, I think, about a year ago, when the journal was full. It was about that thick. And I've been in the process of typing up everything, editing it.
I'm doing the same thing.
And then I'm going to come out with a book. Yeah.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
I'll race you.
So that'll be cool. Yeah. I just found someone to edit it.
Really?
And this really nice woman agreed to, she's actually one of my teachers, one of my spiritual teachers, and she agreed to edit my book. And she's retired, so she has some more time than the average. And yeah, she willingly, I'm so grateful she's going to be helping me out with that. So I'm really excited.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm trying to get my book done too. And it really started with this journal. You know, like I was journaling every day.
And you still have it?
No. So so here's the thing, you know, one of the main reasons for this existential crisis I underwent was due to having OCD, because I was just becoming fixated on so much. I was becoming imprisoned by my own mind, you know, and it was torture. It was torment. It was really terrible. Like I just I was done. I was like so done with the stress, you know?
So what did that look like? Were you like worried about the way your bed looked?
Oh my God. Like... So for instance, like in my closet, right? I had organized all of my shirts, for instance, by sleeve length, by fabric, by date of purchase, you know, things like that. And I would just kind of wear them specifically on specific days or with particular permutations of outfits, you know. That's just one example, but that in itself is like so much to think about. Yeah. You know, and just times that by every single thing that I did in my life.
I've seen your room in this house, and I don't think that's happening anymore, right?
Well, you know, throughout this process, I've learned that minimalism is my best friend.
And that really
just minimizing, simplifying my life as much as possible, you know. But so part of the reason why I went on this journey was because of this OCD, you know, that really pushed me. But, you know, that can be broken down as well into younger childhood traumas, et cetera, which I probably won't go into right now. But going on this journey of journaling everything, that in itself, at the beginning, didn't really. It was therapy, but it didn't produce any good results, you know, because I was still OCD about that. I had to be OCD about something, even if I had nothing left. That's why I gave everything away. You know, I was like, all these things are driving me nuts. I just want a clean slate. And then as soon as I went out, I had another thing to fixate on, which was my journaling, you know? So I had like a whole binder, you know, of every single day, writing everything down, which really was helpful in the therapy of knowing, you know, reflecting on my day and stuff like that, and kick starting my brain into action. But then in and of itself, the journaling became its own fixation and its own prison. And so fortunately, it got stolen one day. I was sleeping out in San Francisco on Market Street on the sidewalk. And I had a drum and I had my journals and I had some money and some, you know, important papers in my backpack. And I used my backpack as a pillow because I was just exhausted. I was hitchhiking all over the place, and I made it to San Francisco, and I was exploring the city, walking back and forth. And there's a lot to see in San Francisco. But eventually I was so tired that I just had to crash. And I crashed right there in the Tenderloin. And I woke up and my whole life was gone. My backpack of everything.
So they took it from under your head?
Someone took it from under my head.
Wow.
And I was mortified because that was my life, you know, that I had rebuilt. I had given up my 18 years and I started a new life, you know?
Yeah.
And I was so fixated on this new life that I created. And then it was totally taken away from me after a year, you know? And I was mortified for a few days. And then I realized that was actually a really good blessing, because it was a lesson I had to learn. I had to learn that things are temporary. And I had to learn how to be flexible. It forced me to be flexible, you know? So, you know, it's like immersion therapy for OCD. You know, it's like having something and then having it taken away.
So how many years after you left your house to the time that
was a year.
A year later.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I thought, okay, but I still need a journal. Like I need to do, this is therapy. This is helpful, you know? So I started writing again, but this time I started writing instead about the journey that I was on. I started writing about what I learned on the journey, and I would only start to write if I actually had something to write about. If I had something like an epiphany that came to me, and it became so much more simple. Everything became simpler at that point, because it wasn't about the details in front of me. It wasn't about the material world anymore, of which is like infinite with details, you know. It was more about the message and the things that I learned along the way. And when I realized that, it simplified everything. And having a simpler life is a more fun life, really is, you know.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I'm more efficient with my energy now. Instead of having to put it into the details of organizing things, I'm organizing my thoughts. And I organize my thoughts in a way that allows me to get shit done.
Yeah.
And in 12 years, I was able to accomplish what I've accomplished. Now I have 42 acres. And with this 42 acres, what I'm trying to do is create a wellness center for people to reflect on their thoughts and come to a place of peace, a kind of peace that I realized that in my own life, you know, and joy, the joy that comes not from fixation, but rather from transcendence, you know, of the things that we're so easily able to fixate on. You know what I mean? Do you have any experience like that yourself? Of transcendence or any fixations that you've endured, habits, addictions?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different things, you know, that really have taken me to where I am now. I have to say that my biggest teacher through this whole time has been relationships, particularly romantic relationships. And lately I realized that it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be with friendships, you know? But in the beginning, the way that I had my awakening was because of a relationship that had ended. And I fell so deeply in love with this woman back in 2012. And it was so powerful. It was so unique. It was something I never experienced before that. And after we broke up, 3 years later, I'm I'm the type of guy who's very optimistic, you know, I'm very full of gratitude, you know, I love all the things that Creator provides for me, you know, and I'm not the type of person that I would have expected to get really depressed, but I did. And I got to a spot where I was so in love that I was like, Creator, please show me, what is this? Has it been 3 years? And I haven't had any clarity on what this is, you know. She got a new partner by then, you know, and there was the universe made it very clear that it wasn't meant to be, at least at that time. And so what I did was, one day I'm living in the mountains in Pennsylvania in the Poconos. My family has a mountain house there. And I'm just there with my dog, and I'm eating really clean. There's a pretty big Amish population there, and so they grow everything super organic.
Nice.
At the time I was eating meat, and I was having like really fresh chicken. Just, I think that the diet had a part in it. And so I'm driving. Well, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. I was looking for I started looking for a very specific type of yoga. Because there was something inside of me that was driving me to find this specific type of yoga. And I don't know how I knew, but there was something that was telling me, just keep looking and you'll know. And so first I tried Vinyasa yoga. Then I tried Hatha yoga. Then I tried Bhakti yoga. Then I tried, you name it. I think I tried Ashtanga yoga. I tried all different kinds of yogas. And then at the time, Tinder had just come out. And I went on there primarily because I didn't know anybody up in that area. And so I was looking more for friends. I was also open to meeting someone new, but I also knew I was not ready. You know, I was still really in love with this woman. So primarily I looked at it as for friendship. And I met this woman who lived up there, and she was like, have you heard of Kundalini yoga? And I was like, no, what's that? And she's like, well, there's this one little studio in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is like 40 minutes to an hour north of the Poconos. And she's like, it's kind of like a smaller city, you know, people know it from The Office. And so I said, okay, yeah, I'm totally open to it. Let's go check it out. She ended up not going to the class, but she told me where it was. And so I show up at this tiny little spot. But on the way there, I just like feel something in my heart. I'm like, God, please, please, please. Like, I'm looking up at the sky. I'm like, please show me why. Like, please explain to me, why do I still have such deep feelings for this woman, right? And I mean, what happened was really unique, you know. I wouldn't say unique, but it was just, to me at the time, I couldn't understand what just happened. So basically, the sky opened up.
Yeah.
This light shined down, and then I felt this energy shoot
Where
up.
were you?
I was in my car driving.
Wow.
And I felt this energy from the base of my spine or around my sacrum shoot up my spine, and it was like a lightning bolt. Like it went up this way, and I was like, what just happened, right? And I was like, I don't know what this is. This is something that's never happened to me before. And so I just kind of was like, I'll find out with time, right? So I get to the yoga class, the Kundalini yoga class, and there's a woman sitting outside the class. She was like a medium. She was a tarot card reader. And I came up to her and I was like, do you have any idea what's happening to me? There's this woman. It's been 3 years. I don't know what to do. She was like, oh, that's your twin flame. And she said it so nonchalant. This was back in 2012. And she said it no, this was not 2012. It was 2015, I think. Okay. And she said it in a way that it was like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Like you should know what it is. And back then it was still a very fresh term. Like I'd never heard it before. It seemed like nobody in my circles had seen it before. And so, or heard it before, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, tell me more. She's like, do a little research on it. But basically, you imagine your soul is a complete globe. And when you come into this reality, your soul splits. And it's actually before you come into this reality, it splits like somewhere before we come in. Yeah. And then it continues to split. But the original split of your soul is the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So one carries primarily more of that energy of the divine feminine. One carries primarily more of the divine masculine. And so they become like magnets to each other. And there's a reason for that. And so, I mean, it was really something new for me. And so she told me, okay, she's your twin flame. So then I go into the Kundalini yoga class and completely blew my mind. Like my third eye just not even open. It just like blasted, blasted open through the practice we did that day. And by the end of it, when we're laying in Vipassana, just on our backs, I just start seeing past lifetimes with this woman that I was mentioning. And I'm like, whoa, this is wild. Like, I'm just seeing so clearly, like visuals and no sound, but I'm just like seeing these clear lifetimes with this person. And I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. Like, this is absolutely something. This is it. Like, this is what I was looking for. This is what my higher self, whatever you want to call it, was guiding me towards. And from that moment, from that first class, I was like, I am going to start teaching Kundalini yoga.
So the original question is,
we're going again? No. Still going?
Keep going.
Oh,
Keep going. Okay. So the original question was about if you've encountered in your life kind of fixations or addictions. And then you went on and talked about this experience with this woman. Do you think that it sounded like you were going to say that maybe you were almost obsessed, but then it turns out she was your twin flame?
Yeah.
Is there a relation
There
between
was
these two
probably,
sides?
yeah, there was definitely some sort of connection there. I mean,
Yeah.
Love is a really interesting thing, right? There's so
Yeah.
much involved with it.
But how do you know in this case specifically if you're being obsessed over or obsessing over someone, or if you're sure she's your twin flame and it's destined to be, and then again, if it is your twin flame, then there's nothing to do, right? You just let it happen, right? If you're naturally going to attract her anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it necessarily means that we're meant to be.
Okay.
Twin flames, from what I've learned and from what I've talked to other people that have met them, they come in to awaken you.
Mm-hmm.
They come in to shake all your shit up and to wake you up. When I met that woman, I was fully in my ego. I was just a completely different person. And I was partying a lot. I was drinking a lot. I was just living a lifestyle that was not helping my development.
Personal growth.
Yeah, my personal growth. It wasn't I wasn't facing any of my shadows, or I didn't even know what any of that was at the time, right?
Right.
Like I was just living my life how I thought everybody was supposed to, you know? Like everybody went to the bar, everybody went to the club, everybody, you know, was going on these, you know, online dating apps. Like that's just what everybody was doing at the time. And I didn't know that there was anything else out there that was going to help me or that was possible, right? And so after that day, when I found those things, everything started flooding in. Like when I found Kundalini Yoga, when I found out what a twin flame was, everything started flooding in. Like it was like the gates, the gates were open, and I started remembering. It didn't even feel like I was learning. It felt like I was remembering the things that I had learned in past lifetimes. And the reason that I knew she was my twin flame was because there was a lot of things that happened between us that were so mystical and so unlike anything else that I've experienced till this day, that it was just undeniable. There was no questioning it. And
so how do you catch yourself from obsessive thoughts towards her?
I mean, it was a practice, right? Like it was all leading me.
Do you think Kundalini helps in that regard?
Kundalini definitely helps. Yeah.
Okay. So describe Kundalini and describe this particular day that you experienced it for the first time.
So Kundalini was brought to America in 1969 by a yogi named Yogi Bhajan.
All right. Okay.
And he saw back then how everybody was doing drugs, you know, at least the younger generations, right? And LSD was legal then, I think, still. And so were mushrooms, I'm pretty sure. And so everybody was exploring with that, you know, and in what I would call more of like the hippie era, right? And so at first he was going to teach hatha yoga to everybody. Okay. But then he was like, no, this is way more, it needs a lot more work than that.
What are the different types of yoga? There's vinyasa, there's hatha. Vinyasa is more like,
it's like a flow.
Quick movements, flowing.
Yeah, so you use your breath to flow through different poses and movements.
There's Kemetic yoga, which is the Egyptian version of taking the hieroglyphic poses that you see the little people in the hieroglyphs. They're in different poses. Go through those. There's Ashtanga.
Ashtanga is one of the more difficult ones physically because you're putting yourself into a pretzel and
contortions.
You're contorting in all different ways that, and sometimes from people that I've talked to, at least, you know, when they were being instructed, the instructors kind of like physically sometimes help to push past your limits of what your body is capable of. So it's pretty intense for practice.
That's more like in the acro yoga side of it, right?
So acro, I think, is its own thing.
Okay.
Where you have a partner and there's a base and then there's a flyer.
Okay.
So acro yoga is usually the base is somebody who's a little bit stronger.
It's like partner yoga.
Yeah, it's partner yoga. Yeah. And then the flyer is somebody usually who's a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
But you switch, right? Like sometimes people will switch if they're around the same size or.
But Ashtanga is more slow, like pose by pose, right?
Yeah, I think you hold it for several minutes.
Okay. And then Hatha is more like the breathing yoga, right?
So Hatha, and then there's Bikram yoga, which is like the hot yoga. Where it's like, I think it gets up to like 120 degrees or more. Sometimes,
That was 108.
I don't know.
120 would be.
120 is too hot. Yeah, it's probably more like 100 to 108. But
because 108 is like a sacred number.
Yeah,
like a lot of the chants go to 108 times.
Yeah, and I know it's meant to make you sweat. And as you're warming your body up and as you're sweating, you're actually able to go deeper into the poses. So that's part of that practice.
Bhakti
is a type of yoga that
meditative
is more devotional.
Yeah.
So you're chanting mantras, which are sets of a language, right? There's all different mantras in different languages. And so that mantra is very powerful because you will sing it usually. In Bhakti, it's devotional yoga. So you're singing and you're not doing any poses.
Yeah.
People think that yoga, you got to do poses, right? And with Bhakti yoga, you're not.
There's probably more types of yoga.
Yeah, right? Those are just the types of yoga that we see in America primarily.
But the one that I think is pretty...
Oh, there's Raja Yoga too.
Raja Yoga, right. Okay.
So that yoga is more meditative. And I haven't practiced much of it, but Raja means king. So it was the yoga for the kings. And it's supposed to be a very powerful type of yoga.
I think the Sikhs do Raja Yoga mostly. But there's like 8 different types of yoga, I think. 8 different types.
So there's the Yoga Sutras and things like that. Yeah,
I need to look more into that.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean,
but the one that was key was Kundalini.
For me. And it's kind of one of those things where I was like, man, I really want to share this with the world.
Yeah, it's profound.
You've tried it?
I see it all the time in everything, you know, like I witness it in life, you know, it's an art form really. And I see it in every living thing a lot of times, you know?
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting thing, you know, the whole journey of the snake even, you know, the ebbs and the flows.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting that what happened to me in the car, I found out later that was actually my Kundalini energy shooting up my spine. And now what I know is that in order for that to happen, your spine has to be fully aligned. So if you have one vertebrae that's popped out or out of place, from my experience, it feels like the Kundalini can't rise up. And so I've also found out that the Kundalini rising is kind of the key to unlocking up here, which is your crown chakra. And then from there, you're able to access the higher higher realms. And they call it going through the veil.
Okay.
So I've noticed that that's kind of the key. And on some plant medicines that I've taken in the past, my body will start to move in ways to get everything aligned so that that can shoot up.
Okay.
And then when that shoots up, then I'm able to access those deeper realms and actually things like the Akashic record. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
So how would you describe it?
Well, the Akashic record, I would say, it seems to be like a library of souls, right?
It's more of a library of teachings, like the library of everything that's ever happened.
No, but don't you get like reincarnated based on something to do with the souls in the Akashic record?
Yeah, I mean it's not even teachings. It's literally a record of every lifetime that you've had.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Okay.
So it's not a soul or a teaching. It's more like
your own personal lifetime record.
Yeah. Well, everybody's.
Okay.
It's everybody's record is in there.
Well, but everybody has their own like record in the Akashic records, right? All these lifetimes.
Yeah, and I mean it's not linear, right? It's not like a library that you're walking through and there's just books everywhere and each book is somebody's lifetimes. I think it's there's like sacred geometry and there's ways of accessing it. People have described it to me before. I've had some friends that will actually start to see it around a person when they're on different plant medicines like DMT, where they will start to work with that person's Akashic record and basically start to help them heal.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by all of these practices, which they at first don't seem related, but they all speak on this energy field around you that they're able to perceive things that the normal eye can't perceive with. Like Reiki, you can heal people, you can pull things out of past traumas, whatever. You know, acupuncture is related to Reiki, auric fields, the Akashic records, and all these different. They seem unrelated at first, but they are all speaking about really the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah, because we're a multifaceted being, right? Like we just see the physical part, but then in certain teachings, like in Kundalini yoga, we actually have 10 bodies outside of this body. And so it's like we have the emotional body, the spiritual body, so on and so forth. And so each one of the bodies carries different aspects of ourselves. Okay. And so when you're doing practices like energy work, like Reiki or integrated energy therapy or those kind of things, you're working with a certain aspect of the body. And you're not just shifting the energy of this physical form. Consequence. That's the word I'm looking for, of working with the energy bodies. And I would say that primarily though, you're the way that I've learned over the years and the way that I've come to understand is that if there's something out here that's starting, right? Like let's say it's a thought or it's some sort of energy coming towards you. If you can clear it out before it reaches your physical body, there's a certain gap where there's time to clear that out, right? And if that's cleared out, then it won't affect you as a manifestation in the physical body. And vice versa, if you're feeling physical symptoms, when you clear those physical symptoms, it also clears it in your energetic bodies.